Hello guys and welcome back to another Dyson Sphere Program Guide, and today we're going to be talking about the early game power, which means anything that doesn't require the structure matrix to unlock, which are the yellow cubes. So first off, the basics. Power is produced through the means of three structures in the early game: the wind farm, the thermal power stations, and solar panels. And the energy is transported wirelessly by Tesla towers and wireless power towers. Now, if we hover over the building icons, we can actually see various information. The Tesla towers can distribute power in a radius of 10 meters, which is indicated by this blue radius, and so any machines under this will be supplied power. And they also have a max connection length of 22 meters between poles that are linked, indicated by the dashed line here. Wireless power towers, however, have a smaller distribution radius of 6 meters, but they can transport power over much further distances, 45 meters as you can see here. This makes them great for connecting your factories that are spread around the planet. Also, more importantly, they allow us to recharge our mech's fuel. And then another great tip here is if you've got a couple on you at all times, then if you're ever low on power, you can plonk them down and delete them once your power is full again. Now, for more tips like that, I do recommend checking out my 20+ tips for beginners. I'll put a link above. Now, transporting power is great, but how do we generate it? Well, we all have the wind turbines, which generate 300 kilowatt hours at 100% strength. They are also super easy to produce, but they do take up a lot of space for a relatively low amount of power. And if we click on the power network, we can see how much power is being consumed to how much we're producing. Ideally, you always want to have more power generation than consumption, or more power capacity than consumption, because the moment you cannot satisfy 100% of the power, the efficiency of your buildings start to drop. The next two power buildings will then be unlocked with research, the cheapest being thermal power and then solar collection. Thermal power allows us to burn off fuel in return for power. This is great early game as you can harvest coal and automate the stations, and with fuels, their consumption will scale with demand. So if you use next to no power, the fuel will burn slowly. If you use lots of power, your fuel will be used up quickly. So make sure your sorters are the top speeds that you can produce to support your system. Another important note is that we have two sides of inputs and outputs to our power generators, the thermal generators. Now you can easily chain several generators together in a line with sorters, but at the same time I don't recommend doing this chain for more than 2 or 3 generators, simply because, as we mentioned prior, the more your factory demands in terms of power, the faster the fuel will be consumed. And so you may struggle to feed them enough fuel if you're linking lots of generators together. Now, different fuel types produce different amounts of energy and thus burn slower or faster accordingly. So manufacture coal, for example, into graphite, and you'll see there's an increase in its energy production. Now, do be warned though that your nodes will eventually run out, unless of course you're playing with the infinite nodes. But the great news is that you can actually burn any regular fuel type in generators. So I actually recommend moving from coal nodes as soon as possible to oil nodes. Now here you can use crude oil, though it's not recommended, refined oil, which is 10% more efficient than crude oil, which can be great if you're trying to sink the excess refined fuel when you're creating the red matrices. And we also have hydrogen, which is even more efficient than crude. And if you partner this with X-ray cracking, you can considerably up your hydrogen production and generate a considerable amount of free energy, or at least until they change the oil nodes. However, there is another option available to us, and that is the solar panel. Now, solar panels can be difficult to produce due to their high silicon cost, and my planet has no silicon, so I'm pretty much dependent on harvesting stone for my silicon currently. The solar panels generate 360 kilowatt hours based on sun intensity, which in general means it doesn't produce a great amount of energy compared to wind turbines, and more importantly, it doesn't produce energy at night. It's also difficult to produce, so why actually use them? Well, firstly, because it is free power, and they also take up less room than wind farms. Now, I've heard people talking about equator solar rings, and I like the idea, but other than averaging out the power across a day, there's no real bonus to doing this. You still need accumulators to really capitalize on a full ring. And as the concentration of sunlight along the equator isn't actually affected in game, it's not that useful. However, we can make use of the north and south poles to make use of the longer days, meaning that even early game we can make the most out of our solar panels. Of course, having accumulators is always well worth it, but by doing this you can make the most of your solar panels early on and average it out by branching out in a circle. Anyway guys, I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please do drop a thumbs up, it means a lot to me. And also if you want to see more Dyson Sphere program content or Satisfactory content, then be sure to subscribe. Anyway guys, until next time, thank you so much for watching. And of course, special thanks does go to all of our supporters, most notably our Solar Eclipse patrons, The Calamity, Bo Papa, Cerebral Tag and Trevor, as well as our Solars, Matt Lippard, Chris McCabe and Lord of July, as well as our Blood Moon of the Day, Jonah Dent. I couldn't do it without you guys, thank you so much. Anyway guys, as always, ciao for now.